Hello, good afternoon. My name is Daniel 7 of 7, and I thought I would do another brief video because the Sabbath is coming. And I already put one up. People will wonder, they'll say that that I'm insulting the Israeli government, and this is the discussion thread about accusing them of being a Nazi Reich. Okay? And I can appreciate people's sensitive feelings on such an accusation, especially against the Jewish people and the government of Israel. Okay? But I have reasons for accusing them of that, legitimate reasons. And there were Jews who were recruited by the Nazi Reich. And I want to have a little discussion thread on this. Okay, I'm not BDS, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Iranian, I'm not Russian, I'm not Chinese, I'm not Syrian, I'm not an Arab, okay? And what I am is what you see. And religiously, I wear the Star of David on my wedding band, my stainless steel signet ring of David, because David was a good king, and God loved him. And David did not seek war with his neighbors because of another controlling, satanic American government. Okay? King David, the king of my people, he was a good king, and he loved his people, and he had a balance of justice, and he was a truth seeker, and he was very good at diplomacy and very good at diplomatic ties with his neighbors. What we see now, compared to the reign of King David of my people, what we're seeing now is sickening. Okay? An Israeli government built up over decades of American genetic enforcement. Okay? We're seeing a Jewish leadership, okay, that is equal to the American satanic presence of the White House. I want to tell the public, look, years ago, before I became knowledgeable and full of wisdom, I used to believe the same things, I used to believe that the great American government, who believed in peace, who believed in freedom, who believed in the right things, who believed in point of law, an American government under God. Okay? Many people believe this. Many people were deceived by this. And the American government turned out to be a bunch of murderers. And they corrupted and polluted their NATO allies with their evils. Okay? Now, that's understandable, folks, with Gentile governments. The fact that, that they can flip to satanic evils like NATO has. Okay? But here's the problem. Jews are supposed to know better, because of our religious history and culture of our people dating back thousands and thousands of years, okay? We're supposed to know better. We're supposed to be closer to God than any other life form on earth. And we're supposed to abide in Him. He is supposed to protect us from threats from other countries if we abide in Him. He said in the Torah that, and this is very important, he said that if you follow my statutes and laws, children of Israel, you'll become a peculiar treasure unto me. This is what my Father said to my people. Okay? And I say to you people out there that in Israel, okay, many, many Jews, okay, like me, follow the statutes and laws of God. It is not their fault that they're being attacked or threatened, or our Jewish children killed with their parents as a result of terrorism. This is not the people's fault. This is the U.S. government and the Israeli leadership. It's their fault. Because they're not listening to God. They're not. This is why. Because you see here, listen. Because there's good people in Israel. Because we have many Jewish religious peoples. We have people who go to the Wailing Wall, rabbis and so on, and young rabbis, and they bow to God at the Wailing Wall with their Taurus. I think that's funny. Because they don't need to do that. He knows. He hears everything. I mean, he appreciates it, and he shows that he hears them in different miraculous ways. For example, plants growing out of the blocks of the Wailing Walls, saying words in Hebrew. The plants are growing into Hebrew letters. Yes, this is a sign from my Father, and yes, he's telling them that he hears them at the wall. Okay? But that doesn't mean they need to be at the Wailing Wall, standing there bowing all day long. This is not necessary. I'm just saying, what I'm simply saying here is, it's not necessary for my Jewish religious brothers to have to stand there and do that. They don't need to do that. He knows. And I don't think it's required of them. So that's my position, Look at Israel with open eyes. It's turned into a country where my people are caged in. It's all security there. Everything's security. There's checkpoints. There's dangers to my people on the streets of Israel. Okay, and this is the Israeli government did this. They created all this. Them and the American government, because Israel decided to suffer. The Israeli government decided to make our people suffer, okay, as a result of their relationship with Satan in Washington. Now, I'm going to say to you people, years ago, I remember Benjamin Netanyahu, the former Prime Minister of Israel, going to Washington, all right? And he stood at a podium next to the president, okay? I believe it was Obama. And Benny Netanyahu, known as Bibi, said it at the podium. He said, he laughed and giggled and he said, hey, Mr. President, something like this. This is how it went. Maybe the wording is not exact, but this is what he said, okay? He said, well, he kind of giggled, well, Mr. President, Iran says that we're little Satan and you're big Satan. Now, I remember when he said that, and it was self-incriminating, because for a country to say that about the Israeli government, there has to be some merit to it. That's my position. Now, at the time, I laughed and giggled too, and I thought, no. Iran is Satan. This is what I thought. And to some extent, Iran is committed to satanic activities as well, using terrorist organizations to kill my people, okay? Killing women and children, Jewish women and children, and other Jewish peoples inside Israel that don't reflect the government, that's true. But at the same time, I will tell you that the Iranian government told the truth. Indeed, the Israeli government is little Satan. This is very true. And their American counterparts in Washington are big Satan, for sure. And there's no doubt about that. This has been proven over and over again. You would think that that the Israeli government, at seeing what their American leaders did to Julian Assange, seeing what the American government and their ally Canada did to my wife and I with the Nuremberg laws and the restrictions, okay, applied against my wife and I, you would think the beatings of George Floyd by Nazi skinheads, which is, I'm telling you, that's what happened, all right, and other acts The fact that it's okay with Israel that the United States Nazi satanic government, um, they created a law that it's illegal to burn the American flag in effigy, right? But it's not okay to burn a Nazi flag. It's okay to fly a Nazi flag. It's okay for the Nazis in the United States and their white supremacist scum, okay, who hate the Jewish people with all their hearts. It's okay for them to have the freedom to build, to recruit. It's okay for them to fly Nazi swastikas to insult my people. That's all legal. It's okay for the Nazis in the United States, Canada, as well as Europe to recruit our leaders, our security, our military. That's all okay too. It's all very legal. And what is happening now has been repeated from the time of Hitler. Hitler did the same thing, right? Hitler walked into a American democratic German system. Okay, Hitler was allowed legally to run for office in the 1920s all over Germany because the stupid German government, the democratic German government after the war, who based Germany's constitution based on the American system. After World War I, Germany developed a Bundestag, okay? Germany developed opposition parties, and they were voted in, communists and Democrats. So Germany in the 1920s had the same constitution of the United States, which gave evil permission to spread, which gave evil permission to rise to power with no restrictions to stop evil from rising to political power. So this is what we're seeing now. This is what has happened. The Nazis have risen again, okay? And then you see the Americans, oh, they're crafty, weren't they? Oh, how crafty they really were. They and their CIA decided that they were going to recruit, okay? They were looking for a Jewish person, okay, in Ukraine. They had planned to bring in a puppet Jewish Ukrainian who would commit evils for them, who would accept Nazi SS militia, okay, in order to bring a division between Russia and Israel. That's exactly what the U.S. government's plan was, and they carried it through. Okay? And it worked exactly as it was designed. And the Israel, no matter what, as a Jew, hey, Zelensky's a Nazi. Absolutely a Nazi. He even admitted in the news that he supports the Nazi Azov battalion, states that they're heroes to the Ukraine. So here we see a joining, okay, of Western SS Nazis in the Ukraine, in the militia, okay, joining with Israel, tying the knot between the swastika and the Jewish state. That was the plan of the United States government, okay? And I think that the Russian President Vladimir Putin was shocked. Like he couldn't believe what was going on. Which is true. I mean, one thing about the Russians, okay, you can say whatever you want about them. You can accuse them of, during the Soviet era, there were atrocities against my people, the Jewish people. Yes, there were. But the Jewish people tried to state, the Russian Jewish people tried to state that these actions by the former Soviet government in the early 70s, or 60s and 70s, was simply pointed at them. Well, that was a kind of a lie, because the Russian people were under the same restrictions and suffered the same, pretty much, okay? Anybody who rose up against the former Soviet government of the since World War II up until the 80s, anyone who protested was history. These are communist laws, okay? So not history, but they won't allow it. You get into trouble for that, for protesting. And the Jewish Russian people are no different. They have to follow the communist laws. Communism was very strictly against religion. It was very hard for my people to pray. It was very difficult. They had to do it in secrecy in the former Soviet Union. They had to be careful. Okay? This is true, and they were very unhappy about that, and I don't blame them. And the right thing for them to do was to leave the country under those circumstances. I don't disagree. I would have too. I would have, I would have wanted to leave Russia as well during the Soviet era, because I have to be able to pray. So I understand that. But the problem here is that times change, and governments change, and attitudes change. Okay, and the problem is that the United States government, Satan. Okay, they are Satan as far as I'm concerned. As a Christian Jew, or a Christian Orthodox Jew, as I like to call myself, they're Satan. This government here on Parliament Hill, they're Satan. That's what they are. They're serpents. Okay. And Israel's government, they're serpents. A Nazi serpent, whatever you want to call it, whatever spin you want to put on it, they've caged themselves in. Israel's suffering, the Jewish people suffer because the Israeli government keeps tying the knot with the U.S. Okay? And that's why our people are suffering. This is why they're going through what they go through there. Because for this reason. All right. The reason why, one of the reasons why Israel has not been outwardly simply attacked is because it is the religious center of the world. I mean, this is true. And that's why they have not been utterly eliminated, okay, by Iran and other countries. And plus, in Israel, there's a large Muslim following. Iran is a Muslim country. And because of the numbers of Muslims in Israel, Iran will not attack Israel. Okay, they would go after Israeli targets in Israel, and try and confine their attacks to Israeli targets, so that their own don't get killed. Okay, and this Iran has done because why? Not because they hate the Jewish people, no, or they hate the synagogues. No, that's not why. It's because the Israeli government is corrupted. Badly corrupted. Okay? That's why. And I know that. My wife and I have felt it. I think I said in previous videos, we went to the Israeli government, to Danny Danon first. We tried to offer them evidence of Mr. Nuremberg and the Nurembergers in the White House with the knuckle handshakes, the knuckle busters and mafia, and this one here. Okay? And the Israeli government simply said, no, we're not going to help you. We're not going to protest. We're going to give cover to the government of Canada. And we're going to give cover to the U.S. government. That's what the Israeli government did. Okay, that's what they did. So do you say that's a government that's not Nazified? A government that covers up evidence of the Nuremberg laws being reapplied? Exactly cloned by Justin Trudeau and his colleagues. I mean cloned to the letter. Everything, the psychological torture that Nazi security used, property destruction like the Nazi security did, okay? Making people wards of the state like the Nazi Reich did, okay? Stealing people's property, money, estates, just like the Nazis did. The only difference between my wife and I and the Jewish people under the Nazis is simply that the German government didn't have a welfare system. Okay? They didn't have that. And they wanted to rob the Jewish people of every cent they had, make them wards of the state, so that they couldn't get away. And that's, they could walk out of the country with a suitcase, right? But that was about it. Now, The Israeli government is feeding right into that again. The Jewish people, the government, not the Jewish people, but the government is doing that again. Efrem Zuroff, I have some criticism of Efrem as well. His report was accurate about Trudeau sending the military over to train the Azov Battalion. Trudeau's a Nazi. I said that. Efrem Zuroff's report helped my wife and I. We will use that against Trudeau in the Supreme Court. Efrem Zuroff's report and other evidence right from the House of Commons. To some extent, some conservatives in the Federal Conservative Party of Canada indeed helped me with my case against Trudeau. No matter what, they did that, whether intentional or not. I know there was no intent on their part to help me with my case against Trudeau. But the fact of the matter is, whether there was or there wasn't, they've helped me enormously. And the 33 million cell phone hacks by Trudeau, that has helped my wife and I amazingly. Because we're going to prove Mr. Trudeau didn't do it because of COVID. I know why he did it. So these things are important. When one of the problems for us is when you're surrounded by a Nazi mafia Reich, politically, judicially, in security, and on the streets, you have to understand that you're surrounded, So it's going to be very, very difficult to get to that, to get to that point that you're trying to reach. There's going to be a lot of resistance, but there's been resistance against my wife and I for a decade or more. So nothing is easy. But I guarantee Trudeau, I won't have to work too hard, Mr. Prime Minister, have you found guilty, believe me. We'll just have a little discussion thread about Marc Garneau's activities, And that alone should do it. If I want to be compensated, just that, and then, telling the Supreme Court under oath how the American government and the Israelis here decided to help Canada kill us, because that's what the Israeli government did, and they're guilty, all right, and they know it. If you're a Jewish brother of mine and you don't want me to insult you, from a leadership perspective, or from the truth, if you don't want me to insult you, then you have to prove to me that you're going to back me up. Israel's not doing that at all. You would be surprised how much control the Israeli government has over the Jewish community here. You would be surprised. The problem here, that's maybe a little different in Israel, is that the Jewish communities here are very political, and the synagogues. And there's some very powerful Jewish people here in Ottawa, business people, rabbis and so on. They're very powerful, and they have a lot of money, and they're tied in deep with the government. That's the problem. And a religious Jew, a good Jew, whether wealthy or not, whether a poor Jew or a rich Jew or whatever the case may be, who's a religious Jew, does not join the government. A good religious Jew is neutral, because we have to, as a people, we have to have the ability to turn against evil in governments, And if we, it's what our God said to us, you see, thousands of years ago, God tried to warn the children of Israel. Thousands of years ago, he told our people that, he said, don't go into them. Don't go into those nations. Don't sleep with them. Don't sleep with their women. Don't have children by them. And the reason why God said that is because they don't believe in him. They don't believe in God's laws or statutes. And eventually, over time, these relationships, would pull the tribes of Israel from abiding in the statutes and laws of our God. And that's why thousands of years ago, God told the people, if you do this thing against me, it'll surely be a snare unto you, is his exact words. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened to Jews who are citizens born in Western states. That's what's happened. You see? And because of this, They are no longer a peculiar treasure unto our Father. That's what's happened. He's not going to defend his children, the ones that are against him. This is why, if you read the story of Exodus, okay, Moses came down from the mountain, all right, with the tablets. He saw the people committing evils. He saw the golden calf, dancing, partying, drinking. And what did he do? He broke the tablets, okay? And then he had to go all the way back up the mountain to get God to, with his finger and fire, to make new tablets, all right? And when he saw God upon the mountain the second time, God said to him, he told him, he said, I am going to destroy this people, for they are committing evils against me down below, you know. And then God said, give me a moment, I'll destroy them, and I'll create the nation of Israel out of your womb, he said to Moshe, okay? And Moses turned around and said, well, no, Father, no, don't do that, because if you do, Pharaoh's going to think you brought our people out into the wilderness to kill them. So God thought that one over, okay? So then he told Moses he was angry, and he told him to take the tablets. He said, get thee down off my mountain, for the people are committing evils. So basically, he was sending him down to deal with it. And so when he came down the second time, they were still doing these things, okay? And then there was thunders, there was quakes, lightning strikes, and then the ground opened up, and people were being swallowed into the ground that God had opened, and the golden calf fell through the ground. And then after that, Moses said to the people, those of you who want to follow me and God, come to me. And those of you that do not, don't. Okay? So, essentially, what did Moses do? Well, he divided our people. He divided the bad from the good, and that was the right thing to do. Okay? And the same thing applies in Israel now. Dividing the bad who are against God and his laws and statutes, dividing the good from the evil. Okay? But the Israeli government is forcing the Jewish tribes of Jacob to be evil. They are forcing this. And they are getting our people killed. The Israeli government is the cause of the attacks against their own people. While, people like Benjamin Netanyahu and Naftali Bennett, they get to go hide underground in bomb shelters, okay, when they are getting attacked for their evils, okay? And our people, my people, innocent Jewish people, are being prejudiced against in their own country. And the reason why that's happening, and I'm going to tell you again, God told our people, now listen, told Joshua and Moses, when our people were camped out in tents on the other side of the Jordan River, okay, Moses and Aaron sent out spies into Canaan. And now God told Moses and Aaron that they're to go in with troops from the tribes, okay, and they're to kill every living thing in Canaan. Everything. Every person in every city, every man, woman, and child. Why did God say that? Well, it wasn't because he was trying to be cruel. It was because he wanted to ensure that Canaan was 100% occupied by the tribes, and that no Gentile could infect them with offspring and eventually turn the people against my father's laws and statutes. Okay? Well, Israel broke that when they became a nation. Okay? Israel allowed foreign women into the country. They allowed Arab women into the country. They allowed Muslims into the country. Okay? They allowed foreign peoples, okay, of foreign religions to become citizens in the state of Israel. And non-religious Arabs. This went against God's order to the tribes thousands of years ago. He only wanted Israel occupied by Jews and no one else. Okay? So the Israeli government has abominated against God. Over and over again, they've done this. Now, if you see, wonders, in the Middle East, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, okay, if you see wonders from God against Iran, or you see wonders from God against Syria or Turkey, or these countries that hate the Israeli state, he is doing it for the remnants of Moses, who are Jewish people in Israel, who hold God in their heart and follow his laws to the letter to this very day. It's the very few religious Jewish people in Israel who maintain the old laws of God, that are in Exodus and Genesis and so on. They uphold those, and there's not many of them left. Okay, so because of the few, he's protecting the few that he loves in Israel, which is becoming fewer every decade. And he's fighting Iran off and, creating quakes and things of that nature. And he's taking natural actions against Turkey, Syria, and whomever, because he's trying to protect the very few remnant of the faithful who stand by, okay, the old temple that our people dragged around the wilderness with Moses, the original tabernacle, okay, and the high priests of the offspring of Aaron. I'm also a Levite, so I am the offspring of Aaron. Do you understand? So, and I maintain these laws. Okay, but listen to me, thousands of years ago, I'm going to tell you something. Hey, if you think that Jewish tribes were humble, think again. If you came into the wilderness as, a Gentile from a foreign land, or a number of you came in to attack the tribes, our tents were around the tabernacle. Okay, you have the tabernacle, then you have the high priest tents around the tabernacle on the outside, and then you have the people in the tents around them. Okay, now if you were foreigners and you came to attack our people at nighttime, our people come out with spears and kill you. Okay, don't think for a second that the tribes of Israel thousands of years ago were a bunch of babies. Okay, these people were tough, lots of them, and the tribes had their own little, what you could refer to then as sort of a police force. Okay, and these people were tough. They had spears and arrows, and you come into the tribes to hurt our women or our children, or to offend us, or to offend our temple of our Father, you were dead. I mean, they kill you. First, they would tie you up, okay, and then gag your mouth, and then, let you rot in the sun for a while with no water and food, and then they would take your gag off of you and say, and Moses would send them, and they would say, who sent you here to do this to us? And you would not be freed until you talked, okay? The Jewish people back then were very tough. Understand this. They were very tough. Our people were living in the wilderness, and they were on foot, and they were dragging their children and everything they owned, okay, in the wilderness, and God was guiding them, and he was with them. And there were many times when even corruption within the tribes challenged Moses, okay? And when they did that, and God saw them, because God used to be in a cloud over the tribes at nighttime every night. I'm not kidding. When our people in the wilderness, okay, gathered together at nighttime, you could see the light in the cloud. That was God in the cloud over our people, watching them. That's what he was doing. He wasn't just popping up between the cherubims on the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, he was coming. He was in the cloud. Isn't that wonderful, eh? In the cloud, to protect our people, and he was listening in on any corruption, or in one case, I'll tell you one case in particular, and then I'll end the video. This is a Sabbath video. In one case, I'm going to tell you a story. Some of the tribesmen were sent in to destroy a city, and God told them, when they destroyed the city and the people in it, to not take any valuables. Don't take any gold, silver, or anything. They are not to touch the valuables as booty. And he made that an order. So they commit the battle, and they destroy the city and the people in it. And my people return back to the tents, okay? The soldiers, all right? And then the next day, God came to Moses, Yahweh. His name is Yahweh, by the way. Don't let anybody tell you different. That's my father's name is Yahweh. That is his name. It's not the way Begley pronounces it. Okay, these Americans are, they don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, so what happened was, the next day God said to Moses, he said, one of the tribal members has violated my order, and he has taken booty from the battle when I said you are not to do this. Okay? So they spied out the man. The man in question was a Jewish man who had buried valuables under his tent in the sand. And God knew exactly who he was. And Moses came out amongst the people and said, one of you has done a terrible thing against God. Okay? And they found the man. And they found what he had done. And now I can't quite recall if they stoned him or if they kicked him out of the tribes. That was another punishment. They could kick you out and you're on your own in the middle of the desert. Okay? But that's another story. Like, God's laws are very stern and strict. Okay? And you can't break them and get away with it. The reason why people think they get away with it is because, as is said, one day to God is 1,000 years. That's very true. And that's why the human race gets away with so much for such a long period of time. Because God's time frame to act is different than our own. It takes him a long, like it took him, he made up his mind 500 years before Noah built the ark that he was going to flood and destroy the earth. 500 years. So, and then Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were building the ark for 120 years. Okay? So there you go. And that's why these filthy governments get away with what they do. That's why the Jewish people were in bondage for 400 years. My people in bondage for 400 years, praying to God for 400 years in hard bondage. And it took God 400 years to come in and rescue them from Pharaoh. Because it's true, one day to us is 1,000 years to him. So, I'm just telling people, the world, but our time is short now, very short. The planet's time is short, and soon, I want to briefly tell you that I was listening to Paul Begley last night in this Mike Around the Wood. I made a few comments, I did. I don't really make very many because I don't like Paul Begley. I just don't. He's evil, okay? And he doesn't pull the wool over my eyes at all. So sometimes he's smart and he says something good, Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe Begley is just doing what he's doing to survive because, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really is a good Christian, and he's just really scared of his government and saying stupid things about Vladimir Putin, President Xi Jinping of China. He could be doing it just to simply survive his government's wrath. That's possible. And but if only Paul Begley would contact me and state his case, exactly where he's at. But I don't think that's the case. I'm sorry. I don't. I think it's a little bit more than that. When you're a Christian, you have to go against your evil government. You have to. Okay. You don't trade you don't trade your loyalty to Jesus Christ as a Christian or to God as a Orthodox Jew. You don't trade your loyalty to God at any time for the evils of your government. You don't do that. It's okay. There's a time to be humble, okay, and there's a time not to be humble. You know, there's a time to be kind and generous and respectful to people, and there's a time not to be. Okay? Because we have a right to defend ourselves against the evils of our governments. We have that right. They don't have a right to do what they do. And they're evil, all of them. And so we have a right to come forward and say it like it is. The problem with our governments is that they do not, will not stop their evils. You know, all our governments do is they give people the right to protest. Oh, sure they do, you know, right? But they know the people will come and protest, the people will leave, and they'll just go right back to committing evils. Okay? That's what they do. That's what Western governments do. They don't listen to the people. Are you kidding? They're against the people. I mean, the minute they get elected, they're against the people. It always has been. It's the state versus the people. Remember, the state is against the people. The state is not for the people. As far as I'm concerned, anyway. For example, communist leaders like President Xi Jinping, he's for the people. I mean, he loves his people. He does the best he can for them in a country that's very, very small, not very big, and has 1.5 billion people. You know, he's a good leader. I judge President Xi before God. He's a good leader. Okay, and the reason why the Chinese people, just an example in China, the reason why they suffer from floods and some quakes and some other things that they think are terrible is not necessarily because God hates them or hates President Xi of the Chinese people. That's not the case. It's just you have to understand. I say this to people, and I've explained this before over the telephone in recorded messages, but I'll explain it to you again. You need to understand that the target of God's wrath for destruction is the United States. Now you need to understand this. And God uses natural destruction. He'll use the earth to destroy the United States. He'll use the sun. He'll use asteroids. He'll use the weather. Okay, everything God does in regards to his wrath against a nation to destroy a particular nation who's evil, he will destroy that nation in natural ways. This is what he's doing to the United States. Now, it is the United States government and the United States itself that he's targeted to destroy. He's going to destroy the U.S., right? But you need to understand something here. It's no small feat. The United States and filthy Canada, in with them, are a big continent between two oceans, right? So you have to know that his wrath that's aimed at the United States, okay, and his natural disasters are going to be spread around the globe. All nations will suffer collateral damage as a result of God's actions that are natural to destroy the U.S. That's why some other nations are feeling the pinch, okay? That's why China's getting it too. Okay? All nations are suffering by God's wrath because of his wrath against the United States. It's all against the United States. It's an evil country. It's satanic. Okay? And they're getting it. And so is Canada's getting it as well. All right? And this is his target. How do I know? Because he told me in a vision in my sleep that he's going to destroy the Amorites. God refers to the American people and their government as Amorites. Incredibly. That's what he calls them, Amorites. He's going to destroy them. And he told me this 7 years ago. All right? In my sleep. He told me not to contact them again. A stupid me went against him and did it anyway because I thought maybe the visions from him and the things he told me in my sleep himself might somehow effectively stop the American government from their evils if I told them these things. Okay, I thought maybe I could convert them to stop. That's why I continued. But as I'm telling you, the American government is evil. Okay, and here's the thing. Excuse me, I'm smoking. There's no going back. The American government needs to understand that. Forgiveness is over. Okay? Joe Biden is a Nazi and a Satanist. Okay? And so are the rest of them. And if you think for 5 seconds, Biden, and I say this directly to you, President Biden, if you think for 5 seconds, President Biden, my Father's going to have mercy on you, you can forget it. You're living in the days of Noah, my friend. Do you understand? You can run to him, Biden. You can go into the temple in your White House and get on your knees and pray, Biden. You can hold a rosary, Mr. President. You can do whatever you want, you and Trudeau. The mercy's over. He's going to destroy you. And nothing, and I mean nothing, Biden is going to change his mind. You're done. And I've said this many times, I'm not saying it out of anger and hatred regarding the American government and their filthy consulate here in Ottawa trying to destroy my wife and I, okay? I'm not saying it for that reason. This is very serious, okay? Sure, I have personal hatreds for the American government as well, for what they did to my wife and I with Canada. Yes, I do, in their filthy consulate, all right? Yes, I do. That's true. That is in there. But more importantly than that, it's bigger than my wife and I. I mean, it's not, we're just a little part of a bigger whole, and they're finished. And this president of the United States knows he's finished, him and his country. My father, Biden, is going to wipe you off the face of the earth in a second. Your day is coming. And the world will rejoice at your destruction because you are the great hooer, Biden, sitting upon many waters, aren't you? As stated in the book of Revelation. And I'm not saying that out of hatred. I mean this. I'm saying it because it's true. That's why. You can't mess around with God and get away with it. You can't. I know him very well. He spoke to me in my sleep, and I know his voice. And he has spoken to no one on this planet except me since Jesus Christ himself. And he spoke with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, my forefathers. He spoke to King David. Okay? He spoke to David. And he spoke to the prophets indicated in the Torah. Okay? Do you understand? And I'm the last one. So I don't care if my Jewish brothers and sisters want to believe it or not. I don't have nothing to prove to them. I know God's voice. I am yet to hear any Jewish person, any Jewish religious brother of mine, or Christian, okay, whether that Christian is Jewish or Gentile, no matter what country he or she may be from. I hear, Christians claiming Jesus spoke to them. I've seen a number of these stories. I've seen and listened to some people on YouTube who claimed Yahweh spoke to them, my Father, not Jesus, the Father. Okay? They're lying. I know his voice. Moshe knew his voice. I know his voice. I know the way he speaks. Okay? I do. And my forefathers do. But in this time period, folks, no one on earth knows his voice except for me, because he spoke to me himself. And he is very, very angry at Canada over my wife and I, and the U.S., and NATO. Very, very angry. Now, you see, the floods, going on, right? You see rivers drying up. I've already seen a number of rivers. I've been looking on YouTube, and I've seen, a number of rivers in different countries dried right up, boats sitting in the mud. Well, I will tell you people something. The reason why he's doing that is because of what Canada did to my boat, Jacob's Ladder. They still don't believe it, eh? They just don't believe it. You can't lead Satanists to the truth because they won't believe it. The province of Quebec, folks. Well, my wife and I slept for 8 hours on our boat, Jacob's Goshen. I'm going to explain this to you. We had the bow of our 31-foot Trojan Express cruiser on the Richelieu River in Quebec, and we had the bow. I pulled in for the night into a shore, a sandy beach, and I had the bow just enough of the stem touching the beach so that the bow couldn't shift in the wind. And at the back of my boat, I had 7 or 8 feet of water under my props, okay? And so what I would do is I would throw out my anchor off the stern, okay? And, okay, to keep the stern from only moving so far back and forth if there's any wind while we sleep, because what'll happen is if the stern can move too far to starboard or too far to port, if there's wind coming down the river, it'll pull the bow off the beach, okay? And while we're sleeping. So in order for it not to do that, I put out a short anchor and made sure it was well grounded in the mud. And it was a good spot because it had a really muddy bottom. The bottom was like quicksand, you know, and a Danforth anchor is designed for the mud. So we planted ourselves there around 7 o'clock at night, okay? And we were up till about maybe 10, 11 o'clock, okay? And there was lots of water. You know, the water wasn't going down because I would have noticed, all right? Because my wife and I would, it was at summertime, beautiful weather, and, you know, we would sit out on the aft section of the boat, right? So then we went to bed around, I think it was around 11, you know, and again, like I go up and I check the wheelhouse and everything, and I check to make sure my engine hatches are closed. I check the anchor before I go to bed on the stern to make sure it's tied in good, because we were having, you know, people coming up at nighttime. They stole my dinghy. You see, we had a dinghy we towed behind it, a wood one that we built here in Ottawa, and we towed it everywhere, you know, because we needed it to get ashore. And they stole it. So I was especially careful, okay? I even was able to, I put a chain on my anchor, and the chain was in the water, okay? But on the boat, I had the chain wound through a port and locked with a lock so that they couldn't steal my anchor while we slept. So we go to bed around 11 o'clock, and my wife woke up around 8 in the morning, okay? She got up, we were sleeping in the forward berth, and she got up and she woke me up. A few minutes later, she says, "Dan," I got up and I was walking towards the galley, and the boat didn't move. She said, why is the boat not rocking? She didn't even go out on deck to look. She just woke me up, and I was half asleep. And I got up, and the boat wasn't moving. That's strange. So I go out right away. I mean, in seconds. I'm half asleep, you know, and I go up the 2-step stairwell into the wheelhouse, look out the window, and the whole boat's in the mud. They dropped that river 36 feet where we slept to put my boat in the mud, okay? And I have a photograph of that. Yeah. I don't think that, the Richelieu River has a tide, does it? And then the next thing to determine was how they did this. Well, you see, down below there's the Chambly Lock, okay, in St. Jean-sur-Richelieu, which goes down to Chambly, all right? And I found out they have a dam down there, okay? And that if there's a bad storm at the top in the Richelieu River above, in St. Jean-sur-Richelieu, a lot of the houses along the river are 2 feet. Their backyards are 2 feet above the river, okay? So if there's a danger of flooding, the river flooding and flooding out these houses along its banks, they will open up that dam, and that water comes out of that dam real fast, and the river lowers. It really is used as a flood control dam at the bottom of Chamblay, which is below Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, through the lockage system. That's how they did it to us. So they went there that night, and they went in that dam, and they opened it up to drain the Richelieu River so that my wife and I would wake up in the morning with our boat in the mud. Who ordered it? Parliament Hill. Okay? So that's what happened. So when you people around the globe see that your rivers run dry and your boats are in the mud, well, I can tell you right now, I know why God is doing that. He hasn't forgotten about Jacob's Goshen and Jacob's ladder, okay, and what they did to Jacob's ladder. Us waking up. I named our Trojan after Jacob in the Bible, and God knew that, because I looked up to him when I got the boat, and I asked him to bless the boat, and I told him I'm naming it after Jacob in the Bible, in the Torah. We named it Jacob's Ladder, and it had the name Jacob's Ladder on the port and starboard side. They knew it was named after Jacob in the Bible. They knew that. Oh yeah, they knew, all right. Okay, because they knew we were religious. They knew I had my Bible. They knew my wife and I were religious people. So they knew. Okay? And here's the point, folks. The Canadian government is just not getting the picture. You know what I'm saying? They refuse to repent. They refuse to compensate us and replace our boat at minimum. Okay? Trudeau just refuses because he is a devil. He is in with the devil, Mr. Trudeau and his flunkies on Parliament Hill. They're evil. Okay? God is not part of their lives, and he hates them for doing this to us. I'm telling you this. Trust me, I know. So that's where things are at. You know, we wanted to get another boat and leave here, and a bigger one, you know, and live on it in Lake Superior, okay? But Trudeau decided to steal my estate and use Maloney to do it, along with my brother. The two of them they tied the knot, okay? That's what happened. My brother kind of, I guess in his case, the problem was blood was thicker than water, I guess, to some extent. But that doesn't change the fact that both my attorney and my brother were together on this, okay? Now, in regards to the Israeli government, yes, I stated that they are a Nazi Reich, okay? And there is very reasonable grounds to make that allegation. As a Jewish person, I am making that allegation. I stick with it because the Israeli government is defending the Western Nazi Reich, and because that's what's happened. And they defended a leader in the Ukraine who is a Nazi Jew. It's that simple. Okay. And they ignored our evidence pertaining to the government of Canada cloning Hitler's policies to the letter. I mean to the letter. The government of Canada cloned every policy that Hitler used against our people, the Jewish people. And I can prove that. So the Israeli government ignored that. Here, their consulate did. And in turn, the Jewish community did also. Because the Jewish community is taking orders from Israel. Okay? And another example of this is Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles and Rabbi Marvin Heyer and his colleagues. Okay? They knew for 3 years. I called them every time my wife and I were threatened and left a message for Rabbi Heyer. I called Rabbi Heyer every time an incident occurred here. Sometimes I would call every day, 3, 4 times, 5 times a day, calling them. Okay? You know, I think I was trying to tell Rabbi Heyer, you know, Rabbi, you need to do something here. You need to go public with my wife and I's case. He refused to do it. Refused. And still never did it. And yet, you know, Rabbi Heyer's claiming that, you know, Simon Wiesenthal Center fights against human rights and violations. Oh, really? Well, I'm sorry, but in our case anyway, Rabbi Heyer failed. in that capacity. So sadly, I might add, I like Rabbi Heyer, and I think Rabbi Heyer speaks very well. He's a good orator, But the problem is here, and I'm going to say it again. Go look on Rabbi Heyer's office wall, in his personal office at the center. What are you going to see? Him shaking hands with Joe Biden. That's why Rabbi Heyer didn't post anything about my wife and I. That's why. Anyways, I'm going to have to go now. I apologize to the public and to my Jewish brothers and sisters for stating the Israeli government are Nazis. I apologize for saying it. But I say to my Jewish brothers and sisters on the Sabbath day, how long can you ignore the fact that that's true? And be insulted by anyone who states that? It's true. So this is what I'm telling you. That's one of the reasons for my video. A second one, this one. And again, I'm going to go, but I wish you all a very safe Sabbath. All of my I love all of you. Trust me, I'm out for your best interests. I want the Jewish people to know that I love you. And you left me to be threatened and intimidated, my wife and I. Women at a place calling itself a church. And these street women downstairs in this women's center at St. Joe's Church here at Ottawa and Laurier, and my wife going down there, and they're insulting her. One of them grabbed her breasts and started moving it up and down at my wife to show her how big her breasts were and how small my wife's were. And the pastor there is not kicking them out. His excuse, I talked to him today when I went down there for my wife. He says to me, oh, well, we have the OP here. We've had them here 3 times this week. I called the police about these things. You know what I said to this pastor of the church? I said to him, well, first of all, Pastor, happy Sabbath to you. I'm Jewish. And that's my wife, Jennifer. And I said to him, look, I said, you better take these women into the cathedral, give them a Bible, okay? Because they're committing evils on holy ground against my wife for no reason. My wife is very quiet, She doesn't respond or get angry. And these women, dirty, filthy women on holy ground, committing evils against my wife on church property. Well, I got to tell you, I don't care what the pastor's excuse is. Evil is not allowed on church property. And if evil, street, filthy prostitutes are going to use holy ground to commit evils against Jesus Christ, then the pastor has the obligation to warn them to stop it, or else get off the property. Because holy ground of Jesus Christ does not allow Satan's children to sit inside a church and insult an innocent woman like my wife. Okay? That is terrible. And this is what I'm saying about Ottawa. Years ago, over a long term, one of the things I determined is we have motorcycle gangs in the churches. We have street prostitutes who don't have a religious bone in their body sitting in the church. We have street scum volunteering in the churches who don't have a religious bone in their body. And they're insulting and threatening innocent people of God who come to the church, like my wife. That is disgraceful. Satan in the churches, able to insult wonderful people with good hearts on Christ's soil, and pastors who don't care, okay, and who do not respect the fact that they are dedicated to God and Jesus, and kicking these things off the property. We're supposed to preach the word, they say. We're supposed to take someone who's an abomination against Christ or God and try and build some kind of foundation inside their souls to make them of Christ and God, to take the evil in them and turn it to good. That's part of being a good priest. A priest is supposed to reject evil from holy ground and religiously kick them off. We understand that, Christians understand that, unfortunately, poor people are also the evilest in the sight of God, from the standpoint that they commit violence to each other, stab each other, drugs, and mental issues, and these kinds of things. As a religious person, I understand that, right? But if we in the religious system cannot convert these people, and they are on holy ground, okay, and they are hurting people on holy ground and insulting innocent people and laughing and giggling while they're sitting in a church of Christ, then it is the pastor's responsibility to find these people and say, look, you cannot occupy holy ground, not in the cafeteria, not downstairs in the women's center. If you are going to commit acts against Christ, you are here on Christ's good graces as well as mine. And that is called being a good pastor. Okay? And we've had this problem with St. Joseph's Church before, and I've complained. My wife has been having problems there for a while. It's gone on for a few years. Okay? And these people downstairs, these women, have no right to be there, shoving their breasts in front of my wife's face and staring at her like, saying to my wife, oh, my breasts are bigger than yours, you got nothing. To insult her, to provocate against her from holy ground. And this pastor says to me today, when I went down there for my wife, I'm going to call the police. No, Pastor, you go to see these women and you tell them that if they harass my wife again, they have to leave and they're not allowed on the property. That's the right thing to do. And they'll have to find some other place, like some biker cafe of their own kind, and get them off holy ground. Anyways, I'm going to end this video now. And again, I wish all of you a very warm and happy Sabbath. And I thank you for listening to me. And shalom and God bless.